The Green Monster, the traveling showboat rather, where Confederate sympathizers are secretly smuggling explosives. Where did that idea come from?
You're watching the Spotlight Network, starring Hollywood's newsman, Logan Crawford.
They now believe a single member.
He works with TV and film legends. And now, Logan's shining the spotlight on the world's top emerging authors and creators.
International were abducted.
This is Spotlight with Logan Crawford, streaming on Roku, Apple TV, and Amazon Fire TV.
What happens when a family's real history becomes inspiration for a Civil War era story filled with danger, divided loyalties, and a deadly secret? Award-winning writer Ashley Herzog draws on her own ancestry to tell the story of an Irish immigrant trying to build a new life in Cleveland while becoming caught in a mystery involving Confederate sympathizers, political corruption, and a burning showboat. I'm Logan Crawford, and right now on Spotlight, we're talking with Ashley about her amazing book. It is a historical novel called Burning River, a story of the Cleveland Irish. We're delighted to have this very talented author join us here today. We thank the team at Prime 7 Media for helping us put her on TV today, and we ask viewers like you to support authors like her by subscribing to our channel and by purchasing her amazing book. The links are below this interview. Ashley, thank you so much for joining me here today.
Thank you for having me.
Great to have you on the show. This is an incredible story. Even more incredible is that it's true. It's largely true. It's novelized fiction, a novelized nonfiction, but it's true story, correct?
Yes, it is based on the true story of my immigrant ancestors who came from County Mayo in the west of Ireland in the 1860s. I was lucky enough to have a great uncle, William Masterson, who we called Grover, who was a family genealogist. He did years worth of research into our family. He did write his own books. They weren't published, but just for our personal use. And I've always been interested in family stories, and that is what I base this novel on.
It's actually based on your great, great, great grandparents, right?
Yes.
Wonderful.
So I just say third great grandparents because it's a little easier. Yes, Bridget McGlynn, the main character, was my real life third great grandmother. She was born in Ireland around 1845, and she immigrated during the Civil War with her brother Dominic, who had a young daughter named Ashley, who appears throughout the book. And while the Civil War obviously was a very dark chapter in our nation's history, it was actually a good opportunity for a lot of very poor Irish tenant farmers because they could enlist as soldiers. It was a new career path for them, and they were willing to fight. Not all of them, as you see throughout the book, there's draft riots. There's some opposition to the war in the Irish community, but that is what brought them to the shores of America in 1863, was her brother's opportunity to enlist in the Union Army.
Wonderful, wonderful. Now, you had family experience and family stories to rely upon, but you had to supplement that with actual research. Tell me what that research was like and if there was any surprising discoveries along the way.
Yes, so I knew a lot about my own family. Like I said, because my great uncle was a genealogist, I knew where they came from. I knew, where their parcel of land in Ireland was. I knew the years they were born. I knew their children's names and their spouses' names. I did not know, besides the basics that were all taught in school, I did not know what civilian life, especially from an immigrant's perspective, would have been like during the Civil War. And I did a lot of research on the military units from Ohio and Michigan, which is where my third great grandfather enlisted as a U.S. Marine. And the most surprising thing was all the things that were not taught in school, all the little details of what these civilians went through. I talk in my book about Morgan's Raid, which was an attempt by a Confederate general to invade Ohio. And while it's all well in the past now and it's all said and done and the North did win the war, this is a very terrifying time for people in Ohio, thinking that they were going to be invaded by their own neighbors from the South and possibly be subjugated to all of their laws. And we hear that there was a turning point in the war, and I think this was it, when they realized this was fight or die, that they weren't just going to split peaceably.
Yeah, it's an incredible story. It's an incredible time, and you've captured it really, really well. For the folks at home who haven't read your book, for the Irish immigrant experience that you show through the eyes of Bridget McGlynn, life was a little bit different than she expected. Talk to us a little bit about her story.
So Bridget McGlynn is 18 when the book opens. She's content with her life in Ireland, but she knows that her options are very limited, especially as a young woman. This was obviously the post-famine era in Ireland, so the Irish famine had ended about 10 years before. They had lost more than half their population in some areas. And she says at the beginning of the novel, she's not really sure what her future in Ireland will be, besides just getting married, having children, and working in her family business, which they own a whiskey distillery that they've restored, and that it was her great grandfather's dream to restore it. But that's not really what she wants to do. She's a dancer. She has trained her whole life in Irish dance, and she says at the beginning of the book, "Is this my future? Am I just going to be performing Irish dance at this pub and distillery, or should I do something more?" She already has an older brother in Cleveland named Joseph, and she knows that in America she can work. She is not bound nearly as much by religion. Um, she will not be under the heel of the British government, which was very oppressive in Ireland. But when she arrives, she quickly finds out that life in America has its own troubles. There's a lot of discrimination against the Irish. There's a lot of anti-Catholic sentiment at the time. She's arriving during wartime. So one of the hardest things she goes through almost immediately after landing in Buffalo, New York, is that her brother gets drafted. He agrees to go, but she thought he would at least be able to settle in with her, and they would be able to figure out where they're going to live and who's going to take care of his daughter. But he has to go to war right away, and she is kind of left to navigate her way to Cleveland by herself with her niece.
Which is kind of a frightening thing, being new to the country and so forth, right?
Right.
Yeah, absolutely. Part of your message in this book is to stand up for what is right and not to become complacent. Talk to us a little bit about why those are values you wanted to espouse within the pages of your book.
All right. That is the overall theme of the book. So among the Irish community in Cleveland and throughout the country, as you've probably seen in the movie Gangs in New York, there was a sentiment among Irish immigrants that this was not their fight, that the Civil War was not really their battle. This was between North and South. They just felt that they didn't have much stake in either side winning. My book is all about people realizing that complacency is not the answer. You can't just stand back and watch this unfold without doing something to help. And as we see, Bridget becomes a nurse working with wounded soldiers in a neighborhood that they called Lincoln Heights, where a lot of homeless soldiers were camping because they couldn't get home. It is now called Tremont in Cleveland. It's still there. And she decides that she has to do something. She has to take what happened to her at the beginning of the book with the showboat burning and this secret that she carries, and she has to use it for good. And I thought that was the overall theme of the book.
Yeah, and it's a very, very powerful message, and we have to take charge of our own destiny, no doubt. One of the most dramatic elements of the story is the Green Monster, the traveling showboat, rather, where Confederate sympathizers are secretly smuggling explosives. Where did that idea come from for this part of the story?
So the story of the Green Monster is that the men who own the boat are what we call copperheads. This is a nickname for people in Ohio, and as well as other states, but it was primarily in Ohio, who lived in Union Territory but were sympathetic to the South. Um, Many of these copperheads got involved in smuggling supplies, not only to Southern territories through the port of Charleston, New Orleans, places like that, but in this case, the men were actually trying to smuggle explosives and other weapons to prisoners at Johnson's Island, which is in the middle of Lake Erie. The Union had built this prison to house high up Confederate officers and other people captured on the battlefield. And they had been plotting an elaborate escape attempt from this prison, basically since they had arrived there. And so these men who live in Ohio but are sympathetic to the Confederacy are trying to help them escape and are smuggling a brand new weapon called TNT, which had just been developed in Switzerland. And when they are caught by a group of Union soldiers, which includes my third great grandfather, William Chambers, they decide to burn their own boat and destroy the evidence rather than be caught smuggling weapons. And that is where the burning of the boat happens at the beginning of the book.
In the burning of the boat, was that inspired by an actual historical event or just something you devised?
Yes. No, it was inspired by a real historical event. So you can find some stories about it on Chronicling America, which has archived newspapers from starting through all of American history, local newspapers, including from Sandusky, which is close to where the accident happened, as well as Cleveland. The thing is, nobody really, as I said in the book, nobody outside of who was not personally there really understood what happened. It was just rumor and speculation. The crew did not come forward to, because they had something to hide, did not come forward to explain what happened. But yes, there are references to it in newspapers.
This story is incredible. Great characters, great settings, great locales based on real life history. Have you envisioned it as a TV series or a series of films?
I would love for that to happen. I am not sure how or where to start, but I mean,
Yeah.
if someone wanted to take that on, I think that would be fantastic.
Yeah, well, you've already started. You created the story, you wrote the book. So I think
Yes,
that's wonderful. So you created the work, and now it just needs to be adapted into a screenplay. So, Hollywood, if you're listening, here's a book that is good to go with a terrific
thank you.
story. Sure. William Chambers is an American Marine from a family that has a rivalry with the McGlynn's. Talk to us about what draws Bridget to him despite everything that should keep them apart.
All right. So in the beginning of the book, you see that the McGlynn's and the Chamberses are enemies. They have a long-standing feud after the Chambers family got Bridget's father, Tommy McGlynn, who was a very ornery, kind of curmudgeonly character. They got him banned from Mass because he kept disrupting it. This is all based on a true story. Uh, Tommy McGlynn, my fourth great grandfather, Bridget's father, was a character. He liked his whiskey and his red wine, and he would go into church and drink his wine out of a jug and heckle the priest. And the Chambers didn't like that so much. So the McGlynn's are pretty convinced that the Chambers family is snobbish and that, you know, they are imposing their sensibilities on them, and these families just have a falling out. And when Bridget meets William Chambers at her family's pub, he offers to dance with her because her brother can't do the final dance, which is an Irish dance that involves lots of stomping and you know, kicking and all the traditional moves. So he offers to step in and do it, and she sees that he is not like the other Chambers, and she realizes that she can't generalize the whole family into one personality type or write him off just because he is a member of this family.
Exactly, exactly. There are good apples in every barrel as well as bad apples. So I'm
Yes.
glad you didn't write them off. The name of the book is Burning River, a story of the Cleveland Irish. It is written by Ashley Herzog. It is a historical novel that blends family ancestry, Civil War era Cleveland, political intrigue, romance, and a dangerous secret aboard the Green Monster. Ashley,
Yeah.
thank you so much for joining me here today.
Thank you for having me.
I appreciate your time, your insight, your talent, and the great work you've done on this book. To the folks at home, I'm Logan Crawford, thanking you for your time this time. Until next.